Citation 45 Wichita Tower, turn right heading 230, runway 19er left, clear for takeoff.
Hello and welcome to this edition of FS Mania. We're here today in Wichita, Kansas at the Dwight D. Eisenhower National Airport. We flew in here several weeks ago in the Embraer Phenom 300 after an epic 5,000 nautical mile ferry flight from Brazil. The folks over at Cessna caught wind of how cheap it was for me to ferry a jet over such a long distance, so they asked me if I'd be willing to ferry this recently refurbished and heavily modified Citation 525A CJ2 over to Charlotte, North Carolina. And they asked if I could have the jet delivered by Christmas. I told Cessna, sure, I can definitely have this jet in Charlotte before Christmas. I'm just not sure which one. So here we are at the Cessna Service Center, all set for an eastbound flight to my home state, North Carolina. Charlotte is the largest city in the state of North Carolina and the second largest city in the southeastern United States, just behind Jacksonville, Florida. Measured by control of assets, Charlotte is the second largest banking headquarters in the United States, after New York City. Why is Charlotte always number 2? I don't know. But in 2013, Forbes named Charlotte among its list of best places for businesses and careers. Charlotte was listed as the 20th largest city in the U.S. and the 60th fastest growing city in the U.S. between 2000 and 2008. Wait, really? 60th place? I think they could have stopped counting somewhere around 20. At any rate, Charlotte Douglas International Airport, identifier Kilo Charlie Lima Tango, was established in 1935 as Charlotte Municipal Airport. There are currently 4 runways, including 3 north-south parallel runways, the longest of those being 10,000 feet. Charlotte Douglas is ranked number 6 of the busiest airports in both the U.S. and the world overall as measured by traffic, aircraft movements, and was ranked the 23rd busiest airport in the world by passenger traffic in 2013. Fun fact, in January of 2009, U.S. Air Flight 1549, an Airbus A320, piloted by Captain Chelsea B. Sully Sullenberger and First Officer Jeffrey B. Skiles, departed New York City's LaGuardia Airport bound for Charlotte Douglas International Airport. 3 minutes after takeoff at an altitude of 2,800 feet, the aircraft struck a flock of Canadian geese, causing a loss of power in both engines. Too low to glide to any airport, Captain Sullenberger glided the A320 to a ditching in the Hudson River off Midtown Manhattan. All 155 people aboard were rescued by nearby boats, and the incident has been described as the most successful ditching in aviation history and has come to be known as the Miracle on the Hudson. In 2010, the damaged Airbus was acquired for the Carolinas Aviation Museum in Charlotte, which held a reception to commemorate the arrival in Charlotte of the plane with Captain Sullenberger as keynote speaker and many of the passengers attending. Pretty cool, fun fact. Just a brief history of Cessna's Citation jetline. The CJ program was launched in 1989 as a replacement for the Cessna Citation 1. The first Citation jet was delivered in 1993. After the first CJs were introduced, every few years, Cessna would stretch the fuselage a bit, add a little more power to the engines, and upgrade the avionics. The variants were marketed under the CJ1, CJ1 Plus, M2, CJ2, which is the model 525A we're flying to Charlotte. The first CJ2 delivered in 2000 was only produced for about 2 years before being discontinued in the favor of the CJ2 Plus. The 2 Plus had still more power, better performance, improved avionics, and FADEC. Cessna continued to make improvements to the CJ line with the introduction of the CJ3, the CJ3 Plus, CJ4, and the CJ4 Plus. So when you look at the entire family line between the original CJ and the CJ4 Plus, you can see for whatever reason, Carenado chose a model in the lower middle of the pack. The good news is the CJ2 is a fresh, clean sheet design featuring a revolutionary straight natural laminar flow airfoil designed in partnership by NASA and Cessna. A new distinctive T-tail is high above the slipstream. The swept horizontal stabilizer helps to reduce drag at high cruise speeds. The engines are pylon mounted, lightweight, Williams Rolls FJ44-2C models with 2,400 pounds of takeoff thrust. That's 500 pounds more thrust than the Dash 1A engines on the CJ1, and they have better range to boot. To help keep the laminar wing smooth, engine bleed air is used to heat the wing for de-icing. You will need to keep the engine spooled up to at least 75% N2 to provide enough bleed air to get the job done. The CJ2 is roomier, faster, and more modern than its predecessors. The cabin is comfortable for 6 passengers with 4 club seats and 2 forward-facing aft seats. There is a potty in the aft cabin that can also double as the 7th passenger seat. And icing on the cake is the CJ2 was designed from ground up to be a single pilot airplane. All of the important switches, gauges, and controls are easily accessible by a single left seat pilot. Cessna, however, did not use the available electronic engine controls on the CJ2 for reasons of simplicity and reliability. That means the pilot has to manipulate the power levers to set target fan speeds during all phases of flight instead of moving the levers to a detent and allowing engine computers or FADEC to set fan speed. The avionics in the Carenado CJ2 are the Rockwell Collins ProLine 21 with a large format PFD and MFD display, also panel-mounted Bendix-Keen CNI 5000 radios. Fun fact, back in 2001, if the co-pilot's PFD option was chosen over the standard round gauges, it added $188,000 to the base price of the jet. The FMS is based on the Universal Avionics UNS 1K. Carenado's version uses Navigraph for the flight simulator nav data. It is not by any stretch a full-featured UNS 1K FMS, but once you get through the trial and error learning curve of how to operate the unit, hopefully, fingers crossed, it will get the job done. The CJ2 can carry a maximum of 9 people. It is 47 feet 8 inches long, 14 feet high, has a wingspan of 49 feet 10 inches, the cabin height is 57 inches, cabin width is 58 inches, and the cabin length is 13 feet 7 inches. Maximum takeoff weight, 12,500 pounds, usable fuel volume of 587 gallons, which is 2,221 pounds, maximum cruise speed 418 knots, maximum range 1,781 nautical miles, and the maximum service ceiling is 45,000 feet. When I was deciding what aircraft to feature next on the FS Mania channel, I was reluctant to take on another Carenado jet. At first glance, the Carenado version of the CJ2 didn't look like an upgrade from the Phenom 300, and as per usual with Carenado's complex aircraft models, there is a lack of documentation and a long list of squawks posted in the AVSIM support forums. In an email, AVSIM Staff Reviewer Ray Marshall told me that he and a couple other guys worked together to modify Carenado's version of the CJ2. They upgraded the avionics with the addition of Flight 1's Garmin GTN 750, and they also corrected most of the squawk list. Those guys are affectionately known as the Mod Squad in the AVSIM forums. I'm very pleased with the work they did, and I'll be letting you know how you can get your hands on these modifications in part 2 of this flight. But right now, we're burning daylight, and I think I hear jingle bells playing. So, climb aboard, buckle up, and let's fly this jet to Carolina country. Hello everyone, and welcome aboard FS Mania's flight nonstop from Wichita to Charlotte, North Carolina. Buckle up, let's get this thing going. We're in here, it's cold and dark in the CJ2. And as you can see in this aircraft, this is an aircraft that is a jet that is certified for single pilot operation. So pretty much everything is within reach of the pilot flying. And there's some things over there for the co-pilot to do if you have one. But you can fly this single pilot legally if you are so trained. And one of the other things I'll note is how much glass and visibility this cockpit. This is a big selling feature of the CJ. Lots and lots and lots of glass and plenty of view out of the window, so you can not run into other airplanes. At any rate, what we're going to do is we're going to do a cold and dark startup, get everything underway, and take off and fly to Charlotte. We've checked the weather, and frankly, right now it's not looking great in Charlotte. There's some bad weather that's coming in, some winter weather, and that part of the country. So definitely going to need to probably go in, shoot an instrument approach, and there's some overcast, and so we'll just see how it goes. But first things first, we're going to go back and just do our before start checklist, and over here is the oxygen control valve. It's in the normal position, and we'll take a look at all the circuit breakers and be sure they're all in, and the co-pilot side, those are all in as well. And the battery switch, will bring it up over here into the on position. And I'll say this as we get going, I will probably en route, I will go over some of the features of this very heavily modified version of Carenado CJ2, and we'll show you some of them as we're starting up. En route, I will go over some of the upgrades and modifications in more detail, but for right now we're just going to get things fired up cold and dark, and from a cold and dark state, and get underway so we can try to get into Charlotte before the airport closes. So battery switch is on. We're going to come in and I have set some views. That one goes through the yoke. Sorry about that. We'll come in and check and be sure we have at least 24 volts in our battery, and we do. And since we do, now we'll go ahead, we've checked that, we'll go ahead and cut on our GPU. Shift 6 will bring up this little window right here. That's one way to do it, and when we crank the GPU up, you can see it's connected, and now we have a little closer to 29 volts, 28 something, and it'll spool on up there, but that's what we got. So we can close that window, Shift 6. There's also another window, Shift 7 here, that the Mod Squad has added that will also give you the same window right there, and some other things. We'll go over that again en route. So we have checked our battery voltage, GPU's connected, and we'll cut on our nav light for right now just so it will indicate that we are powered up. And we're going to bring the standby gyro here switch momentarily into the test position. We get a green light, flip it back up, and it's on. And we'll go ahead and cut on some panel lights here. Now I'm really zoomed in close to these switches because for me they're a little hard to read. And passenger safety switch, we'll go ahead and put that on. And avionics power, and it's right here. I'll just back up here so we can see. Here's the Garmin GTN 750 that's been installed in this model of the CJ2, and we'll touch the screen, get it up here, bring it online, clear the message, and it's ready to go. So first thing I'm going to do is go ahead and grab the ATIS. So let's just come in here, and an easy way.
TOS system test okay.
Okay, TOS is good. So what we're going to do is go into our waypoint and bring up our airport page, and it's defaulting to the Wichita airport. We'll bring up the frequencies. Let's put ATIS in there and grab the ATIS.
Airport information
Echo.
1810 Zulu, wind 2906 at 3, visibility greater than 20 miles, sky conditions 18,000, scattered, temperature -6, dew point -18, altimeter 3033, ILS runway 1 left and ILS runway 1 right in use, landing and departing runway 1 left and runway 1 right. VFR aircraft stay direction of flight. All aircraft read back hold short instructions. Advise controller on initial contact US Echo. Wichita
We have
Airport
Echo.
Information Foxtrot 1810
And now Foxtrot. So we'll listen to it one more time since it just changed.
Visibility greater than 20 miles. Sky conditions 18,000.
Weather's good here.
Temperature -6. Dew point -18. Altimeter 3033.
Altimeter didn't change.
Runway 1 left and ILS. Runway
Okay,
1
so we'll go ahead and put clearance in the bottom here,
departing runway 1 left.
and we'll be expecting to depart runway 1 left. So we've got now we have clearance up here, and let's put ground in the bottom, and that'll be ready. So we'll go ahead and get our flight plan in. Okay, that's loud. When you got to hit these buttons just right. So for flight plan, I've actually already got it stored, but I'm going to go ahead and punch it in just so you can kind of follow along and see how we do it. So first thing we'll do is come in and add our first waypoint en route, which is the Wichita VOR, and that's India Charlie Tango. And since there's several, it's this one right here, the closest one to us. And from there we're going to get on an airway jet route, and so we'll do just clicked on the waypoint and load the airway, and there's some Victor Airways, and we're just going to go down until we see Jet 134. There it is right there, and we're going to take that all the way to the Butler VOR. So that's good, and we'll load that. And then at Butler we're going to get on another airway, and that will be jet 112, which is right there. We're going to take that to the Pless intersection. We'll load that. This is going to go quick, and then we're going to, from there, get on another airway, and from Pless, jet 45, which is that one, we're going to take that to Nashville, and so we'll load that. And then from Nashville, it will be jet 46, load airway, jet 46 right there, and we should take that all the way to Volunteer. Volunteer is right there, and so we'll load that. And that's one last waypoint, and that's the Charlotte Airport. So Kilo, what is it? Kilo Charlie Lima Tango from memory. And that's Charlotte Douglas International, so that's what we want. So we're good there, and there is a way to preview this, but we can look at it here too. I believe there's a way to preview that if I'm not mistaken, but there's our flight plan. Everything looks good to me there, and we're actually at this point we're going to be shutting our avionics back off to start the engine. So just to get the flight plan in there, what I would do then would just be come in here and not there, but go back to the flight plan page and actually save it. So menu, and you can store it, but I've already stored it. And in fact, if we bring up the catalog, you'll see it right there. It's already in. It's 860 nautical miles, and estimated safe altitude is 9,000 feet. So we've got it already in there, so we won't have to worry about it. But we'll go through the rest of our startup checklist, and then we'll come back and get that all set up in there. So we want to check a couple of other things over here. We're going to bring the battery back down to the emergency position, and when we do, you see our avionics went dead and came back up, so we lost the flight plan that we had in there. No problem, because it's stored, but we just want to be sure that we do, on the emergency bus, we do have those avionics, and we do. So we'll come back over here, we'll come back over here and bring this back up into battery position. Let's cut off the avionics now. In preparation for start, our generators are in the off position here, which is where they should be. Full fuel boost, we're going to bring that down into the normal position. Fuel transfer is off, and the LHAR slaves for the pilot side should be in the auto position, and they are, let's see, LHAR slaves are right there, auto position, and that's correct. Park and brake right down here is set. I know we're up here close. I could pull out just a little bit, maybe. I'm cutting it through the yoke. That's why I'm in so close. Okay, so we just got our head stuck way down here, but you can definitely see, and that's what's important. Okay, windshield, the bleed air manual valves, they are off. Park and brake set, we said. Control lock is off. That's right here. Landing gear handle, while we're down here, is in the down position, and we've got 3 greens indicating anti-skid switch. We'll go ahead and bring that into the on position. Passenger safety switch is on. Right now taxi lights are off. So everything else there looks good. And moving along, air conditioner, we'll go down here and check that. So environmental control panel is here, and pressurization right in there. So right now air conditioner is in the off position, and we'll come back and set this once we get the engine started, but everything looks good right there. Air source is on both right here. That's where we want that to be. And the co-pilots, the right AHAR slave, it's in the auto position. The switch actually is auto. I believe one way is supposed to be normal, and it's just been mislabeled. No big deal. Throttles should be in the off position. So let me get back up here and be sure, and they're not. So what we want to do is get them in the off position. So let me just move down here. We'll talk about this later. And let's see if we can't. Yep, there we go. So they are in the off position, and I just want to be sure my throttles are set where we can easily cut them back on. And while we're down there looking, let's go back and look at the thrust attenuators. Those are the little paddles on the side of the engine that come out and redirect the thrust coming out of the engine, and they are in the auto position. The engine sync is in the off position, and you can see the speed brakes are retracted where they should be. And this CDU FMS unit is actually been modified and has a lot of good information. We're going to go over that in flight. Autopilot down here is very difficult in the simulator, not so much probably in the real world, but in the simulator it's pretty hard to look down here and engage and everything. So all of those functions have been moved up here. If we do this pop-up, you can see that we can adjust our indicated airspeed, our course, our vertical speed and heading. And so there's some nice features with this that have been modified again by the mod squad. And so I've got a view set up actually for this so that we can zoom in and look at it a little better, and we'll go over that some more later on in flight. So that completed our before start, so we're going to go ahead and get ready to start. Our pre-flight inspection is done. Wheel chocks are removed, cabin doors are closed, and passengers have been briefed if there were any. Seat belts, shoulder harnesses, rudder pedals, everything's adjusted. Fuel quantity, so we've got on board right now, if we look in here, we've got on board almost 2,000 pounds on each side, 1,970 pounds to be exact on each side. So pretty much full fuel, and we're going to go ahead and indicate that we're going to start the engines by bringing our beacon on. And our throttles have been set forward just a little bit, so here's our starter switch, and you can start either side. If you have passengers boarding, then you start the right side, but since we're all closed up, we'll start the left side, because then I can move this throttle out of the way. This one's a little harder to get to, so we'll just press our start button and we'll watch our N2 come up. We want at least 8%, up even better at 12. Add fuel, and then we'll just monitor and be sure that N2 keeps rising and oil pressure starts to come up and that we get a light, and we'll have fuel flow. And there's the ITT indicating we've got a light, and we have fuel beginning to flow and our oil pressure's up, and this is indicating that we should disconnect our GPS, but we'll go ahead and get the other engine going. Okay, starter, N2, we've got two good lights. Now we can go ahead and indicate to the lineman that we want to disconnect our GPS by giving them the signal. And the way we will really do it is we'll bring this up and we'll disconnect the GPU, close that window, and then we can come down here and bring our generators on. And that's not them, that's the fuel boost. Generators are right, that's ignition. How about I get down here where I can see them? Generators, here we go. So left generator on, indicating that we have now more than 24 volts, and we're showing that left generator is outputting. Right generator is coming on, and it's also indicating output, and our voltage is staying good. And we'll just do, while we're in here, a quick check of these generators. We'll cut this one back off, and we see that this one has increased to compensate. We've still maintained our battery voltage, and we'll cut the right one off. And now we have greater than 24 volts. These are both indicating 0, as they should be. Bring this one back up, it indicates a charge. Bring this one back up, it indicates a charge. Voltages all look good. We'll call that a good test. The only other thing we should do is actually cut our battery switch to off and be sure our generators continue to output. There is a little bit of an amp drop on both sides. This reads 0, so everything's good there. Now let's go ahead and bring our avionics back on. Let's get our air conditioner started while those are booting up. We'll touch the screen to continue. Clear the message, and we'll get our air going in here. So we'll bring this up into auto. We'll bring the cabin
TOS system test OK.
cockpit fans down to low, and let's set our temperature up. Now I've got the tips on I don't normally fly with those, but it's just helpful in this airplane in several areas. And right here we'll set our temp up to 70, so we're nice and toasty. And we can go ahead while we're in here and set our, this is another place the tooltips come in handy to set the field elevation of our landing field, which is about 800 feet in that range. Charlotte is, so above sea level, so somewhere right in there will be good. And without this, now you can see this is indicating basically 100 feet right here, but without it being the tooltips, it would be pretty hard to figure out what that was. So anyway, that's what we're doing there. And the other thing that the tooltips come in handy for is to check the trim, so where it's set. And you can see there's this little tab right here. I've been lining it up with using the trim tab on my yoke, this little switch on my yoke to do this, but this will tell me about what degrees it is. So right about the top of this arc, at the top of this tab right here, works about for me, so there's around 3 degrees. We'll see how that does. And our flaps are right here. We have an indicator up there, and we want to take off with 1 notch of flaps, which is 15 degrees. But while we're in here, 35 degrees is the approach flaps, and 60 degrees are ground flaps. And if you notice that when we put it in the ground flaps, the speed brakes came out, so we'll use those when we land, and that'll bring our speed brakes out. And that's about 60 degrees of flaps there that we're indicating. And when we bring them back up, we see the speed brake indicator go out, which means they've retracted. You can actually see them in this airplane, and if you want to, it's you kind of sort of have to get out here. Now they're retracted now, so you won't see them, but if you get yourself out there far enough, you can. But you can also just look at the indicator. I do that. So our flaps are set, and flight controls will check for a full range of movement, free and correct. And so when you're looking and talking about free and correct flight controls, now this would be a good place to take a peep at the ailerons and be sure that they are correct. When you bank left, that one should be coming up. When you bank right, that one should go down. So we'll call that correct. There's a rotor bias system on this airplane, which basically is a system that if you lose an engine, the rudder will, on the dead engine side, will actually help you overcome the asymmetrical thrust. But it's not modeled. There is a test for it that you can do by bringing your power up on one engine and checking to be sure that the dead engine side actually does go in, but it doesn't work. So we're just going to skip that test. We'll just pretend like the rudder bias is operable as it should be. Thrust attenuators here, we talked about those. The paddles on the rear of the engines, they are in the auto position where they should be. And one of the things I'll show you is if you click here, these are of course your engine gauges. These are actually where the annunciators are. The engine gauges are down here in the normal version of this aircraft, but this is pretty nice because we still have the annunciators here, and we can just click and go back and forth. And so we'll often refer to this panel, and so just wanted to mention that. And our radio stacks, all the radios are already on. And let's get back down here and just set a few things up in here before we call for our clearance. So one of the things I like to do is on this little jewel right here, this is, we can change the format to the map, the arc. Right now we're on arc, or the rows. I like actually the rows, since we have the map over here. So I just go ahead and set it there, and then change the range just a little bit. Go out that way. There we go. And that's just a little more easy for me. It kind of goes back to the steam gauge, having the directional gyro. So that's just the way I like it. And let's go ahead and be sure we have got that flight plan in here. So we're going to go to our catalog and pull up that one, and we're going to activate it. And we don't have a current one, so that'll be good. And since we're going to be taking off on one heading north, I'm going to activate this leg right here, and that way I'll show you why here in just a second. But before I do, let's go ahead and put our arrival in Charlotte, as we already know that that's going to be the Johns 3 arrival and the volunteer transition. So we'll load that up. There we go, and we've got that in there. So if we go back and look at the map here, you'll see that taking off to the north, now I've got this leg activated, and that's what we'll be intercepting when we leave here, so we won't have to take off and fly over here and then turn around and come back. So I'm going to zoom us in to the safe taxi mode right there, and let's see, we've got clearance in here, we've got ground in there, and we're still sitting on standby 1200, so we're ready to give clearance a call. Let's see, I've got them up there on mic 1 on COM 1. Wichita clearance, Citation 736 X-Ray Zulu with Foxtrot requesting IFR to Kilo Charlie Lima Tango.
Citation 736 X-Ray Zulu cleared to the Kilo Charlie Lima Tango Airport via radar vectors after departure. Dennis filed, climb and maintain 1000, expect flight level 230 10 minutes after departure. Departure frequency 126.7, squawk 0316.
Okay, Citation 6 X-Ray Zulu is cleared to the Charlotte Airport via radar vectors, then is filed, climb and maintain 1000, expect flight level 230 10 minutes after departure. Departure frequency 267 and 0316 in the box.
Citation 6 X-Ray Zulu, read back correct. Contact Wichita ground 121.9er when ready to taxi. Good day.
Ground on point 9er for Citation 6 X-Ray Zulu. Alright, so we'll go ahead then and put in our squawk code here, which was 0316. And we'll enter that, and that's in there on standby. And I'll go ahead and get our departure frequency, which was 126.7, and set that up in COM 2 so we can switch it easy after we take off. 126.7, and we'll go ahead and put that over there in the active. And he gave us 1000, so we'll go ahead and set that up in the window here. Flight level 110 or 11,000 feet. It's not a flight level yet, and I think we are good there. So let me double check my checklist. We'll see, transponder is set, radios set for departure. We can go ahead and do one other thing down here, and that is, let's go back into here and go back to our waypoints, and I'm doing this again the lazy way, bring up frequencies. We've got ground in there. We'll go ahead now and put the tower, which I believe is 18 something. Let's see, that's Charlotte, so we need Wichita. Wichita, let's get those frequencies. Okay, so we know ground's 21.9, which is common frequency for ground, and there's the tower right there. So we got ground, tower, and then over here we do have departure frequency. So all that's set up the way I want it, and we'll go back to our map. Zoomed in on safe taxi, all that looks good. Now on the takeoff data, the V speeds, we can click this little jewel right here. Here's our V speeds over here. And our gross weight right now is 11,700 pounds, and I can confirm that by coming down here. And gross weight of the aircraft right there, we're a little below 11.7 now because we've got engines running, but close enough. So for that gross weight, the takeoff speeds, V1 and VR, are both 107. So V1 is set on 105, VR is 110. I'm going to leave them there. We'll get some call outs, but that's splitting the difference. We'll leave those there. I think that's fine. You can change those if you want to. And so all you do is just click on it right here, and then you can come over and scroll. Let's see, I think it's this one. Yep, that one right there. You just scroll it, and then it's changed, but we're going to leave it on 105 like I said, so I think that's good. So that's confirmed, and all we need to do now is we'll set our transponder to ground so that they can spot us on their ground radar, and we'll give them a call, 121.9, and tell them we're ready to taxi. Good afternoon, Wichita Ground, Citation 736 X-Ray Zulu at the Cessna Service Center with Foxtrot, ready to taxi.
Citation 736 X-Ray Zulu, Wichita Ground, runway 1 right, taxi via Foxtrot and Mike.
Runway 1 right via Foxtrot and Mike, Citation 6 X-Ray Zulu. Alright, let's get on some lights there. Brakes released and away we go. We're going to break the video right here, and when we come back we'll do a takeoff, climb out, and the en route segment of the video, share some fun facts and a few more details about this awesome, well modified aircraft by the Mod Squad over at AVSIM. And Ray Marshall, thanks a lot. Ray was very instrumental, and along with some other folks, I'll be sure and mention them in the video notes. But until then, thanks for joining me, and we will see you in part 2. So long.
Number 4 Delta Bravo, turn right heading to 050, contact departure.